If you take this entire region, as far as you could box it in, everything is red. Red would represent, in this the map I looked at, it could make it green, could make it red, green, and black. Islam. The whole map is Islam, and there's this tiny dot that literally you got to zoom in to even see, which is this blue dot that's Israel. And they got the whole world believing that we're colonists and we're apartheid state and we stole everybody's land. It's a tiny dot that you don't see until you zoom in 50 times. It's surrounded by a worlds of Islam states. So what's so righteous about an Islamic country, an Islamic state, and what's so evil about a Jewish state?
Where do you think this comes from? Because it seems like there's almost like this Funhouse Effect that some people have when they look at Judaism. It's like everything that they see when they look at us, it's like warped.
You mean why does the world view what we would call the basic reality in such an absurd way, it's a insane way?
It's switched. Call us an apartheid state when many Muslim countries, they're actually apartheid states. When the funny thing is, within Israel itself, there is apartheid, but it's in the West Bank. It's
because they want their own country.
They say.
Well, we tried to give them a version of their own country because we gave them their space, but that's not apartheid.
Right. But where does this disconnect within some people? Because it seems like almost like an illness.
So I think there's a few things behind it. If we want to get more educational, I would say like this: people in general favor themselves. Okay, and that's just that you can't help that. I favor myself, and if a person's going to identify with his family, he'll favor his family over strangers. And I will favor my country over the country that's across the street from me that has their rockets aimed at me. Of course, that's a given. So since we favor ourselves, we always look at the stranger, the foreigner, more critically, more distrusting. And so since the Jews are the chosen people and we have singled ourselves out because God created it that way, so we're always the other guy. We're never one of them. Just like in a sense that when we talk about individual peoples, so one of us is the Jews are one of us. We have with charity, we give charity to our fellow Jews before we give charity to others, which is normal. But so since we're us and they're them, and in the global historical for 6,000 years, there's the us, which is the Jews, and then them, that's every other country. So the world then looks at us as who do they think they are? Because we're not one of them. But they would if they would identify us as one of them, then they would favor us more. So part of, I think, where this whole idea of we're criticized and we're dealing with a lot of criticism and they're overly critical of us and they point out everything we do wrong is because that's what we do to others. Just like I do that to the guy that I don't like, so they do it to the people that they don't like, the country that they don't like. That's one of the areas, I guess, where this gets started. And then there are other things involved. I think another thing is, if we want to get a little bit more mystical, Kabbalistic, I think there's a deeper issue is really the fact that we claim that we're different. We claim that we're unique, a unique nation chosen by God. And we really, if you study the books that we have and the truth that we explain, it's really even exists on a soul level. So what we're essentially saying is we're absolutely different from everybody else in the world.
Do you believe that we're different from everybody else in the world?
Yes, I believe we're different. I believe we have a unique relationship with each other and with Hashem.
But different doesn't necessarily mean better.
I just was writing a comment about that today because there's a video that's out that's discussing this. Different doesn't mean better if we create a relative better, meaning perspective is important. We were singled out and that we can't deny. Saying that we're not Jews and we're not unique in our role central to spreading godly wisdom in the world would be lying to ourselves and that wouldn't be fair to anybody, not to ourselves and not to the world. Lying is not going to get us anywhere. Saying we're better than everybody else, so that's relative. Because I say I was chosen for a divine mission that I believe God gave me, does that mean I'm saying I'm better than you? I mean, in the end of the day, we're all just here doing what Hashem wants. So it doesn't necessarily mean I'm better than you. It means I have what I have, and I have to be proud of it. And of course, relatively speaking, you have what God created you for, because if God's omnipotent and God created all of us, and he created all of us with forethought, then whoever you are, whatever you are, God created you with that direct connection to him, the creator. And so really you got to answer to him in the end. It's not about who's better, me or you. It's about, am I doing what God created me to do? And are you doing what God created you to do? We have to learn how to tolerate each other and not get upset with what I don't have or what I think someone else has that I want. And then we would outgrow this all about, I'm better, you're better. The chosenness doesn't equal better. You're right. Now, does that mean I would trade my chosenness for someone else's chosenness? Absolutely not.
I mean, but I could see somebody who would come up to a Jew or a member of Bnei Israel and be like, "What do you mean you're chosen? Why were you chosen? Why weren't we chosen?"
They were, in fact, chosen first. They were chosen to serve God through what we call the 7 commands of Bnei Noach, of Noah. And we were chosen from that group. We also come, our roots are the same roots that they have, from Noach, but we were chosen to be a specific part with a new specific mission that Avraham really merited, and we inherited through his excellence in his devotion to Hashem. He was a beloved to Hashem, and he loved Hashem, and he brought Hashem to the world. And in response to that, Hashem said, I'm choosing you and your descendants to receive my Torah and be that light onto the nations. It's his light, not ours, in the end of the day. So the fact that he gave it to us to spread to the world just means it's for everybody. We just happen to be the first ones that are receiving it, but it's really to receive and share. And everyone can complain. Moses got it before me, so should I be upset at Moses and think he thinks he's better than me? There's no end to this. It's normal to happen, but we have to outgrow that. We have to get over that. That's what Mashiach means. Mashiach really means all of us getting over these issues, because what the prophets tell us that the goal is world peace, not just peace for the Muslims, not just peace for the Jews, but world peace, which means all of us finding our place in Hashem's world. And if our place is in the middle, which is that blue tiny dot that might get blown up a little bit when Hashem decides how much is ours, that means us being proud of that and accepting that and being that, not buying into their narrative and saying, oh, how dare us have this blue dot on the map. No, that's ours from Hashem. Saying it and being honest with ourselves and saying to the world, that's ours. It says it in the Bible. You cannot erase that. You want to say that God replaced us for you. So we're not buying into that story. And in any way, if they want to claim that they're replacing us, so then they just have this new chosen claim.
I have my own theory on this. Like, people, right? Christians and the Muslims like to say that we're not the chosen people anymore because we didn't do our duty, and now the Christians are the chosen people, or Muslims are the chosen people. If all of a sudden he was taking his covenant away from us, wouldn't it be appropriate if he told us?
Well, he would, because that God would do things in the best possible way. But the problem is he wouldn't, because he wouldn't ever replace us, because that's in fact what it says in the Bible, that I will not replace you ever for another people. I love you forever. My love for you is unconditional. And no matter how rotten you become, that's an external issue. That's a result of environment and the challenges that he's himself giving us. But a father never gets rid of a child. And so he says, I'll never get rid of you. So the whole claim that we're being replaced has no basis. It's all just based on emotion and belief and outright lies, especially by the Muslims. It's outright lies. That's all it is.
But if they say, but they go off of the Bible also. So if it says this stuff, how is it possible then that they're able to make these claims and people believe it?
Okay, so unfortunately, you would assume that people do their due diligence. In reality, that's not so. Because let's just quickly, I did put a lot of thought, and there actually are videos out there on these topics. Christians worship our brother, turned him into a god, believe that he was born out of some immaculate conception, and all that's beautiful and perfect. And
but not all Christians. Some just believe he's the Messiah. Some
just in general. In general, they believe that he's the Trinity, so he's like a God incarnate. Right. Okay, he's our brother. He was a Jew. He was born a Jew. He died a Jew. And he goes where Jews go to when they got to fix their mistakes. And we, ultimately, he's a Jew. And you can't erase him from being part of the Jewish people. But look at the Christians, and whatever denomination, Catholic, I'm not getting into the details. They worship him, turn him into a god, some of them, maybe more, most of them. And then they hated his brothers and sisters for millennia and murdered them and abused them and raped them and pogromed them. So don't expect them to make sense. Their whole life and their practice doesn't make any sense. They worship our brother and then they hate us and kill us and shoot us like worse than animals. So they don't know. They're no way to base on. Now, what about Islam? Islam also, it claims that they're basing their religion on the true prophets of Judaism because otherwise it's a non-starter. They have to borrow something to get started. Then they claim that we are, of course, evil by nature. We come from the monkeys, and we lie by nature. We steal by nature. So of course, we corrupted our own Bible. That's their claim, which is in the time of...
I've heard this, yeah.
In the time that Islam, already it's like 2,000 years into, historically, the game. So you have a 2,000-year-old Bible that we've corrupted. Because what do? We replaced the name of Isaac. I'm sorry. We replaced the name of Ismail with Isaac Yitzchak. That's one of their claims. And I only found this out as a 38-year-old man in an Uber on the way to the Toronto International Airport to do my Aliyah trip to Israel. So I'm 38 years old with my wife and 2 kids, driving to do Aliyah. We're moving to Israel. We're becoming Israeli. Don't tell everybody. Anyways, and I got my brother driving me, or my cousin, Muhammad, and we're talking, which I was always very friendly with people, with Muslims in general. I had many Muslim friends growing up. And so we're talking, and he tells me, Anna, we're brothers, Abraham, my father, Abraham, Isaac's father, and of course, Abraham, he took Ismail on the mountain to sacrifice. And then it dawned on me. Of course there'll never be peace. They're stealing our story. They're stealing the famous case of identity theft, they want to be us. So how are we going to have peace? Yeah, they'll have peace when we don't exist. That's peace through destruction, peace through annihilation, not peace. So that's what, unfortunately, that's what they're about. Even though there's good, I don't want to be misconstrued. There's good in the Muslim people because people have good in them. But their religion is flawed because it's based on, of course, true prophecies from the Jewish people, but it's also based on human creation and human ideas, and they favor themselves, and they lie in their favor, and they convince everybody of these lies. And so they've convinced the world that we corrupted our own Bible. Think about it. How absurd is that?
Well, I want to be careful, at least for myself, of saying that they're lying. I mean, we know from our perspective, right, that Yitzchak was the one who was brought to be sacrificed from Avram. We know this from a Masorah that was passed down from generation to generation.
Masorah, you mean the Bible?
Yeah,
not
the Torah.
Masorah, the Bible.
I'm sorry. Give me the difference between Masorah and where did I go wrong there?
It's written in the actual Bible that they have in their Quran, and the Christians have in their New Testament, whatever you want to call it. So it's written black and white. Nobody can deny that. The Christians don't, and they would just the Muslims, the Arab Muslims in the beginning had the audacity to then throw out that claim of that we corrupted our own scriptures.
Right, but even though we know that they're lying, maybe they don't, because they're through generation they've been told the same thing, so they actually believe this is true. They actually believe it's truth, especially if they don't learn, right? If the Quran is the main Muslim text, and they don't actually get to, I'm just making some sort of assumption here, they don't actually get their hands on the Torah, and they only believe the Quran, but they know that all the prophets from the Beni Yisrael, I think they call us, which is another topic I want to get to. They believe that what they're talking about is truth.
Okay, so here's the thing: you can't excuse people for not knowing the history. I mean, this is a history that's accepted by the world for millennia. So you can't come and rewrite history millennia after the fact and then say, well, of course, or, well, Islam doesn't lie, so it has to be true. People have to do their own research, and people have to answer for themselves. That every human being, every individual cannot just excuse himself when he gets to heaven and say, I was just following the leader. In the end of the day, you're going to be asked also, well, what were you doing? Because if you were following...
Yeah, but we trust our leaders. We trust our leaders, right? Like the people that I trust most in this world are my parents. And they, with whatever wisdom they have or lack, they will put you into a school. So I'm trusting that my parents are doing the best for me and putting me into the hands of people who also have, please God, the best for me. And these are the people that I'm going to listen to, and I'm going to believe them for the most part, especially if I'm not somebody who is super thirsty for curiosity outside of his own bubble. And maybe it comes to the question of when does ignorance stop being an excuse?
That is exactly what we're getting at. And the truth is, and this is an important thing to bring out, is that if I would be in their shoes, what would I do? Would I overcome the obstacles that they seem to be facing, and vice versa? And the answer is going to be often not. And that's why we have an instruction from the sages not to judge someone until you reach his place. Meaning you have to judge him from his perspective. But there's a limit to that. You can't excuse murder and massacre because we can't judge you unless we come to your place. We have to be practical and open-minded at the same time, which means this: if there's a group of people out there like ISIS doing what they're doing, so we have to protect ourselves and get rid of that evil. Do we have to judge them for are they brainwashed? Are they not brainwashed? Maybe a big part of the members of ISIS were brainwashed, like being in a cult. And we're not saying that they are fully responsible and conscious of what they're doing. But as soon as they start behaving in a certain way where their beliefs and their what they've been brainwashed to believe affects others, so that's more important is how it's affecting others and what you got to do about that. So if Islam takes advantage of naive, ignorant people and raises them on beliefs that are false, so yeah, they might be innocent victims, but Islam itself and the jihad that's blowing themselves up all around the world and destroying the world, you have to deal with that reality. Okay, we could excuse them on some level and say they have some kind of temporary insanity because they've been misled. But we still have to protect ourselves and do what needs to be done to set the world straight. We cannot allow the world to go on this destructive course and everyone live a life of lies and just because, everyone's beliefs are valid or everyone's opinion is valid. Everyone has an opinion, but it doesn't make it valid. Everyone has beliefs, but it doesn't make it valid. So truth has to stand at the end of it all. It's truth and true purpose that we're all in search for.
So from the Jewish from your perspective and from the Jewish perspective is that we hold the emes, is that Torah is emes. It's truth. It is the word of Hashem, and that is an objective reality that just is.
Yes, but it needs more explanation because, again, people from a different perspective need help. What does it mean that we were meant to be a light unto the nations? Why don't they have their own light? If they had their own light, then we don't need to be their light. So the Bible itself, this is the Tanakh that everybody has in their
starts with in the beginning God created. Yeah,
and there are parts that mention that we're meant to be a light unto the nation. So what does that mean? And if we could get to what that really means, then we could all benefit from that. Meaning we could benefit from being able to be that, and the people around us can benefit from what that is if it's something godly. The Lubavitcher, I think, says it best in one of his courses. He says, look, when we're being chased by people that want to kill us with once upon a time knives, once upon a time sticks, and then now guns, and now missiles, and then one day nuclear bombs. So we have no responsibility to be the light unto the nations because we have to protect ourselves and survive. But in a peaceful world where people reach a point where they put down the weapons and they're ready to coexist, peacefully exist, unity within diversity, then yes, we can begin to be a light unto the nations. And that's a time we live in for the most part. There's always going to be some issues. There are some radical things happening, but for the most part, we live in a much more docile world. The Christians certainly have put down their aggressive, violent tactics that once existed.
I was going to say, the Christians seem to want the base of English to be built more so than a lot of Jews do. You know?
Yes, that again, there's positive in people. You have to believe in the overall good of people. Our belief is not we're the only good people. God forbid. That's not our belief, and that's not true. There are good people everywhere, and the job is for good people to come together for goodness. Unfortunately, people can become selfish and become full of hate, because we're human, and that's a human reaction. When someone has more than me or has better than me, I can start to become upset and jealous and feel like, how come I don't have, and even start to hate Hashem, God forbid. And that leads to a lot of discourse and ultimately violence and wars. What creates all the wars that we've been experiencing for thousands of years? Something's causing that. You can't call that good. That's not the goodness of people. There is goodness, and there's also the opposite. And so we have to distinguish. We can't just, we'll lie to ourselves and say everyone is good and everything is good. That's not true. There is good in this world, and we have to harness it. We have to strengthen it, and that's what we have to be doing.
If we're supposed to be a light unto the nations, and we believe that we do have MS, why don't we preach out to the rest of the world? Not to bring them to Judaism, but just to give a taste of the MS.
First of all, I think the first way to be a light onto anyone or anything, including yourself, is to lead by example. We kind of skip the first part of life and the first part of the mark we want to make in this world because we think it's too global. If you got the wrong lens and you're thinking too far away, then you're missing what's in front of you. The first step to being a light onto anything is to live by example. Fix yourself, live by standards that you believe are correct as much as you're able to, and then look what to do further. It's not to fix the world, and then I'll eventually get to fixing me. No, it's fix yourself and your immediate surroundings. What kind of effect are you having in your immediate surroundings? You want to send a message to the world? Okay, you got time for that. What are you telling yourself, first of all, when you start your day? What are you telling your students if you have students? How are you interacting with your coworkers? That's how Joseph became the most successful man that ever lived, by affecting his immediate surroundings with this energy, this goodness, this blessing, this success, in bringing out the goodness in him and in everyone around him, and unifying everyone to. He just was a walking success, a miracle of success, because he became a conduit for it. So, in the same way that he went into a prison and fixed the prison, he went to the Sarmashkin's place and he fixed, not the Sarmashkin, the Potiphar. He went to Potiphar's place and he put him in charge. And then everywhere he went, he was put in charge of wherever he went. Okay, so it's a nice story. He was Mr. Success, but how did he do it? If you were going to interview Yosef HaTzadik, if you were going to actually go down there and make a documentary of the Yosef HaTzadik story, how would it look? So it would look like a person that you'd have to film second by second. I mean, there'd be scenes. If we were making the Hollywood blockbuster, we'd have to film scenes. We'd have to capture the essence of what Yosef was, and what the essence of what he was positivity, respect that he's a visitor in God's world, and respect that he has to respect the other visitors. And through goodness and through being connected to who he was and to, of course, Hashem and Hashem's world, he was able to unify. It wasn't, it's something that's a little bit beyond us in this day and age to really fully understand, but that's some of what I understand. And what I try to meditate on is that he became a conduit to look for where something was missing, look where there was a need, look how he could help. And he brought so many things together in Mitzrayim. He's an amazing story to really get into in much more detail, but I'm not doing any justice. But using him as a prime example of start with your immediate proximity. And he did that. And every place he went to, from himself looking outward, he fixed.
I feel like sometimes everybody has like some sort of Mashiach complex. Like they want to fix the world, but it has to be my way. Like we're going to fix everything's going to be green, because if everything's recyclable, every reusable energy, all of it will save the world. I feel like everybody wants to save the world, but they want to do it their way.
That's not so bad. Again, but you got to be practical. And fixing the world begins with what's in your reach to fix. God put you in a place. And if you want to ignore the place you're in and think that that's how you're going to fix the world, that's how you do the opposite, because you skip the person that really needs you. There's a person in front of you that needs help. You want to look past him because you want to fix everybody. Well, start with the one person you could fix. That's why the Rambam says, help one person, save one person, you've saved the entire world.